Hey guys, this is another episode of Full Disclosure from InfinityExist.com. I'm Tho, this is Knox and Patchy, and they're going to tell you about SQL injection.
Alright, SQL or SQL injection is a technique that exploits the database layer of an application. The vulnerability is present when user input is not properly filtered, allowing a user to manipulate the SQL statement. The SQL statement is basically a command sent to the SQL server to create, retrieve, or change data from the database. SQL statements are embedded in programming languages to make it easier to access data for like forms and things like that.
Alright, for the first attack, what we're going to do is show you a simple login bypass using SQL injection, and then we're going to go into a little more advanced attack using SQL, which allows us to retrieve MD5 hashes from the web server database. Alright, whenever you log into a website, your username and password are included in an SQL statement and checked against the username and password stored in the database. The statement will look like this. Basically, the statement says, select all columns from test table where username equals the username you entered and password equals the password you entered. POST stands for a user input. Alright, basically what we're going to show you here is just a standard login, a successful login with a username and password. As you can see, it was a successful login. Gets us into the admin area. And an unsuccessful login gives you the error message of an incorrect login. Okay. Alright, for this first bypass method, what we're going to do is we're basically going to comment out the username. So basically it just checks the username to the database, and the username will obviously be there. These are comment symbols used, pound symbol, or 2 dashes. We're going to use the pound symbol here, as you can see. Basically it just comments out that password. This is what the statement will look like server side, so as it goes into the database, as you can see, the password is commented out, checks the username, and lets us in. Alright, for this next login bypass, basically what we're doing is we're creating a logical truth with an OR statement. What we do is we add an OR statement to the end of the login, basically checks the username and password, it gives you an OR, and we put 1 equals 1, which is a logical truth. If any of you've ever programmed, an OR statement, it checks either one side of it or the other side, and because 1 equals 1 is true, it lets you in. And don't forget to comment out that last single quote. Alright, another way to do that logical truth statement is to use characters. It takes advantage of the single quote that we had to comment out before. We're just taking A equals A. You have to use a single quote around the characters. It's a logical truth, so it works like before. This login bypass SQL injection attack was made pretty much obsolete by a function called add slash. Basically what it did is it added a backslash in front of any quotes that were inputted by a user. This was later added in later PHP versions to automatically, by default, run. So any user input from like a get post or a cookie would add a backslash in front of any quote, basically telling it that it was user inputted.
However, in some situations, you can still use SQL injection attacks, like when the variable is meant to be used only for integers, but they don't filter out characters. So you don't need a single quote in the statement. That's what happens in our forms we use on our website. It's WP-forms. Basically, the variable user is used as an integer, but also as a character. But so he doesn't filter out single quotes or characters or anything like that. So we'll show you that attack. Alright, this SQL injection attack will allow us to extract data from